from Cleveland's most accurate weather team. This is 19 First Alert Plus, sponsored by the man that makes them pay, Tim Misney.
Hello there and welcome to your First Alert forecast. I'm showing you 90 at 528. Yeah, 528 right now.
Yeah.
So Erica, that is what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, conditions on the east side, especially if you're in parts of Lake County, Ashtabula County, they're pretty rough, and they've been that way for the past day or so now. I mean, this snow really started to kick up at almost this point yesterday. And, you know, I've seen some snowfall totals starting to come in terms of 24-hour reports. And I believe the last one I saw from Conneaut was 23 inches in 24 hours. So that's almost an inch per hour that you're getting of snow. So conditions are pretty brutal on the east side. We knew this was going to happen. I mean, you're talking lake water temperatures that are currently sitting about mid to upper 40s. With this colder air that's moving across the lake, you're going to have a lot of lake effect snow. So this is going to still be a concern for us even as we go through tonight, head through the rest of the weekend, and specifically through the early part of this next week as well. And I'll be honest, it looks like we're not even going to be done with the snow, even when you're talking Tuesday and beyond through the end of the week. We'll talk a little bit more about that in your 7-day coming up. But really kind of my main concern as we head through the rest of tonight and through early tomorrow morning is that we could see storm total accumulations of another potentially foot or two in some spots. I mean, it really just depends on where we see these more persistent bands setting up. And my concern will mainly be across the northern portions of Geauga County, Lake County, as well as Ashtabula County. I-90 travel right now is very rough, not only east of Cleveland here in Ohio, but when you're looking up towards Pennsylvania into New York, I've seen a lot of chat through our talks with the National Weather Service of just how bad it is from some of our other partners across the country, basically just chiming in to say, yeah, it's pretty rough going out that direction. So expect reduced visibility, snowfall rates 1 to 2 inches per hour. If you absolutely have to be out on the roads, please make sure you're giving yourself a lot of extra time. Make sure the car is filled up with gas just in case you get stuck somewhere. You hope that doesn't happen, but in situations like this, you never know. You never know what kind of situation you're going to end up getting yourself into. For Cuyahoga County, winter weather advisory in effect. You could see totals up to 4 inches. Now, if you're on the west side, you're in Westlake and you're seeing this forecast, you're probably not going to be seeing 4 inches. You may not even see 1 inch before it's all said and done. This is mainly covering that little corridor of 90 that takes you east of Cleveland, where we could still see a few more of those lake effect snow bands try and drift to the south a little bit more tonight before it eventually lifts back to the north tomorrow. So just keep that in mind. This is your additional snowfall totals through the rest of tonight. Again, you'll see the big bullseye, basically eastern Lake County, northern Geauga County, and that west central portion of Ashtabula County, where we anticipate potentially another foot, maybe 2 feet of snow before it's all said and done, and before this snow band eventually lifts back to the north, which a lot of data still points that it will as we head through the day tomorrow. If you're south, I know I was personally driving through the Akron-Canton area earlier today, and if you got through some of those heavier bursts of snow, it was some pretty decent drops in visibility over a relatively short time scale. So keep in mind those could still be possible. I think the bulk of this moisture, though, is really starting to clear to the east. I'm not seeing a ton of additional development west, so probably most of the heavier bursts of snow done for you, but we'll see what this can kind of accumulate to as we kind of go through the rest of the evening. But it's really this that has our attention. I mean, when you zoom in up here to the north, I mean, you can just tell those darker blue colors moving into Ashtabula, moving across the Leroy area, that 90 corridor between basically Menor and up towards Madison. You're going to be dealing with some pretty significant whiteout conditions like this from that ODOT camera that you were just talking about earlier. It's not fog, it's not haze. That is just how heavy some of that snow is coming down at times. So please keep that in mind as you go through the rest of your evening. The lake effect will still be a primary story through, I think, the early part of tomorrow. And then you slowly start to see that band lifting to the north. That's actually some winds kind of helping us out in the upper levels of our atmosphere. basically helping to push that band back out over the lake. So it is quite likely we could see some blue sky, peaks of sunshine by the time we get into tomorrow afternoon, which I'm sure will be welcome given where our temperatures are going to sit tomorrow. It is going to be a very cold day. Wind chill values will stay into the teens pretty much from start to finish. So if you are going to be out and about, please make sure you're staying bundled up, because with winds gusting close to 30 miles per hour, that makes it pretty brutal to spend a lot of time outside. And then as we go through tomorrow night, you eventually start to see the lake effect becoming a bigger story again as we kind of transition into your Sunday, because those winds are turning more west-northwesterly, and so it's going to help guide that snow band down to the south, which will eventually then give more of our primary and potentially even secondary snow belts better opportunities of seeing snow to wrap up the weekend and head into early this next week. So that's where you start to see some of that snowfall accumulation drifting a little farther to the south and to the east as we get the upcoming work week started, Jeff.
Yeah, this is something that we have absolutely warned people about. I want to pull up what you have in Weather 1 right now, which makes no sense to people at home, but makes sense to us. Just so you know what to talk over or to explain here. Yeah, so this is, where exactly is this one pointed to? Do we know?
You know, I think this is our camera out in the Madison area. I think this is our first alert camera that we have out there. But to be honest, it's really hard to say because you can't really get a good point of view because of how heavy that snow has been coming down. Again, 1 to 2 inch per hour rates. That's what it's going to look like out there. You do not want to be traveling in that if you absolutely do not have to be.
So I'm going to pull that off really quickly, Erica, because I want to show people the difference that a couple of miles can make. Because I know for many people, they're like, well, it's not looking bad outside. So I'm going to pull up now. This is the camera that I typically show, right, that shows downtown Cleveland. You will notice everything looks fine. The difficulty can be for a lot of people, right? They look outside, they say, it's not a big deal. If you can really quickly, actually, you know what, we're going to save this for after the break, but I will just put this into your head right now. I want to touch on the very specific zones that we're talking about and how the location can be so dependent on that. We're going to get to that in a second. First, a quick break, and then we'll get to it.
I've represented families just like yours for over 4 decades. Listen, if you need me, call me. You know I'll be there for you, and I'll make them pay. In the meantime, I'll keep an eye out for you.
All right, and we are back, Erica, here. So I'll pull up what you have with the Doppler. But yes, we're talking about the location and how really it can vary.
Yeah, so I just to kind of give a point of reference, because we may have people in, Lorain County, Medina County, down towards Wayne County that, you saw some scattered snow showers today, but I mean, this isn't really a big impact for you. It is if you're out driving in it and certainly you get caught in one of those heavier bursts of snow, but it really all has to do with the way that upper level wind is basically steering some of these bands. And you can see how it basically consolidates this into a relatively narrow zone. I mean, that's really only a few miles really north to south that you have some of this banding activity that you're seeing. One going into Ashtabula County, one going into Lake County. So when you talk about your 10-day forecast, and I'll show you that here, you'll notice I have a note on here where it says basically lake effect snow travel impacts. For the most part, at least for the weekend side of things, this is going to be into that primary snow belt, where you're going to have that west wind basically steering things into the heart of northeastern Northeast Ohio, if that makes sense. So you're talking Lake County, you're talking the very northeastern tip of Cuyahoga County, even out towards Ashtabula County, northern part of Geauga County. That's really where the focus is going to be on these significant snowfall accumulations, that potential that you have a quick reduction in visibility down less than 1/4 of a mile, like what we're seeing out across Madison and even some other cameras that we have across Lake County. That's really where the biggest impacts will be. And certainly if you've talked to anybody that's been traveling today through the eastern part of our area, through Erie, Pennsylvania, up through even that kind of Lake Erie part of New York, you're going to run into a lot of people that are saying it's been really slow travel. You've probably seen a lot of slide-offs because conditions were just so bad and plows cannot keep up with that kind of activity. So that is going to be the biggest struggle, I think, for road crews here the next couple of days. Again, I do think we'll get a little bit of a break headed into tomorrow, but unfortunately those winds start to steer back a little bit more to push that band basically down to the south Sunday, Monday into Tuesday of this next week. That's where we have the alert days in effect for the lake effect snow specifically. second half of the work week, this is a little bit of a different story. We actually get a little bit of a clipper system that's coming in from the north. This will give pretty much everybody a better chance to see, at least as the data stands right now, widespread snow chances Wednesday, Thursday into Friday. So it's also going to keep this Arctic air basically locked in place through the end of the work week. You can see that with your daytime highs into the upper 20s on Friday and barely recovering into this next weekend. So basically you're bracing for a week where you're going to be dealing with a lot of snow. If you're in our primary snow belt, you're going to get slammed with it basically for the next 24, 48, even potentially 72 hours until this lake effect kind of comes to a close a little bit. But you're probably not going to see good relief until basically this time next week or even by next Saturday. It may take that long for us to finally shut off these snow chances across our area.
You know what's interesting about this whole thing is we've been watching and monitoring a ton of this all day today. I want to show people, this is the view from 90 at the Ashtabula County line, and it's just not looking pleasant. Also, when you get into Pennsylvania, it's not looking good there either, which is very obvious, as many people can see. And as Erica just pointed out with kind of the stretch that we're having here, it's not like this is just isolated to a day.
No.
If they're having difficulties clearing now, that only gets worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. I mean, you know, road crews, they do obviously everything that they can. There's only so many of them to cover so much stretch of road that we have across our area. But when you're talking snowfall rates that are 1 to 2 inches per hour, it's just humanly impossible to really keep up with that, because the second you make a pass and you clear things up, all of a sudden everything that you've just done has been covered over with new lake effect snow that's continued to fall. And when you have these persistent bands and these squalls, we say as squalls persist, that's where you get some of the higher totals. This is exactly what we're talking about. You can see where we just have this onslaught of snow and it just keeps developing out over the lake. And until you change something with those upper level winds, it's not going to cut that off. So road crews are going to have a heck of a time trying to keep up with this next couple of days. And unfortunately, if you have family, friends, anybody that has to travel that 90 corridor through Ohio, Pennsylvania, even up through New York into Buffalo, I mean, it's going to be a struggle to get there in any good amount of time, first of all, but maybe even possibly safely. I mean, it's going to be a really rough go.
Erica, the last thing that I do have for you here, we've been providing updates, we've been providing this information here related to these snow totals and things like that. I talked a little bit with Jeff Tanchak. The wind itself making for conditions that are tough here. I know it's tough to kind of see the wind outlook for this, but do you perceive it advancing the way that it has been, where we've seen these intense winds in some areas with the snow?
Yeah, so the thing about this forecast is, and you know, I was trying to look to see if there was any day where I could really not include the wind icon, and you don't see it technically on Sunday, but we just don't have one that's mostly cloudy with a little bit of sunshine, snow, and a wind icon, so I had to forego one of the options there. I really don't think there's going to be a day where sustained winds next several days drop below 15 miles per hour. I mean, yeah, you might get a brief break of that, but just when you look at your day as a general overview, I mean, you're talking sustained winds, 15, 25 miles per hour next several days. Any snow that's falling, blowing, potentially drifting, especially as we start to really cool off that temperature and dry things out in the atmosphere a little bit more, which makes it a little bit more of that fluffier snow that tends to blow around and drift a bit more. I mean, you're just going to be dealing with that day after day, and it looks like through the early part of this next week as well. So, I mean, yeah, conditions like what we're dealing with today, maybe not necessarily to, you know, the extent that we're talking about with feet of snow in 24 hours, but everything else, I mean, you're pretty much putting that story on repeat for the next several days.
Erica, anything else before we let you go?
I don't think so. I mean, really just make sure if you're going to have to travel the next couple of days, you're taking it slow, you're planning ahead, you have that emergency kit in the car, all the good things that we stress during the winter season, because this lake effect, I guess you could call it event that we're dealing with the next several days. It's no joke. So please do take it seriously, and please do travel very carefully if you do have to be out on the roads.
Yeah, not a fun day to drive, so please take it slow, but take the advice of the people that know it the best. If you don't have to travel, just don't.
Yeah.
Erica, thank you so much. We will see you not coming up in a little bit. Actually, it's going to be in a lot of it.
Yeah.
So programming note, we are not on until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock tonight. I almost messed that up. But yeah, if anything changes, anything breaks, we'll be able to provide that to all of you as soon as possible. Erica, thank you so much.
Yep, thanks.
And as we touch on all the time here, if anything breaks, anything goes haywire here, we will provide that to you as soon as possible. Also, the First Alert Weather app, a great resource for everything that we've been talking about, and we will have the latest for you there. For now, I'm Jeff Slauson with 19 News. On behalf of Erica Page, thank you so much for watching. Much more to come, both on air and online.
19 News, now streaming on Samsung Smart TV. Search for Channel 1035.